This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Boy, does time fly when you're having fun. This football season was unbelievable, but now hard to believe we are already here. It's officially Super Bowl week with Super Bowl 60 on the horizon. Welcome in to Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network, Sirius XM channel 158. Stormy Buonantony and Jonathan Von Tobel with you as always. But for the first time in what feels like the history of our program, JVT, you are the one in a hotel today out there in San Francisco gearing up for all the Super Bowl festivities. How are you?
I'm good. Yes, fine taste of the medicine. Although if it was really a taste of your own medicine, I wouldn't be here, and maybe I would spare 15 minutes for you. But no, it's been a busy time. Like I was telling you right before we came on, man, woke up at 3:00 this morning. The second we hit the ground, there was interviews already, knocking out a few, talking to people, scheduling them out. You know, Radio Row is a ton of fun. And for anybody who's got a real job, this will fall on deaf ears. But it is a lot of work. It's a lot of walking around, a lot of bustling. But I live for it. I love it. It's been a lot of fun already. We're only on day one, so I'm very much looking forward to later in the week.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I know it can be a little bit slower the first couple days out there at Radio Row, but what is it, Wednesday, Thursday, where it really starts to pick up?
Yeah, a lot of people wait till later in the week to come down here, only spend a couple of days. So Wednesday, Thursday is like peak hours. Friday, it kind of dies almost immediately. So I'm hoping that you guys will look forward to. I've got a couple of former Raiders offensive linemen lined up for Friday if we want to talk to them.
Let's go.
But, yeah, I'm really looking forward to Wednesday, Thursday because that's when everybody's going to be around. It is going to be packed. And then I didn't realize that here at the Moscone Center, the Pro Bowl games are happening here. So that's also going down here on Tuesday. So that is something that's made it a little bit busier, I think, than normal because today was quite busy.
Okay, right on. Yeah, that's good to know. I didn't really realize it was out there either. And that just goes to show, though, how different the conversation is around the Pro Bowl nowadays than it was back in the day. And that's all the people that are in it aside, how that has played out over the past week when we learned all of those names that have been input. That said, with the Super Bowl officially here, we have a little bit of movement on the spread, not a ton. As of right now, we have largely those 4.5s across the board in favor of Seattle. There are a couple 5s out here in Vegas at the Westgate Superbook, also at the South Point. The total has also come down a little bit, was sitting at that 46.5 for a while. We're pretty solid at the 45.5, although here at Circa, we're at a 45. Any initial thoughts on where we sit right now and where we might go by the end of the week?
Yeah, I think we're probably going to be here, right? I mean, we talked about this with Mike Palm last week where, you know, if you want to sit back and wait and see what's going to happen, you can take a little 4.5 and not feel too bad about it. I mean, I laid 5.5 here with Seattle. We'll talk about that as part of our best bets. But my thought was initially, Stormy, that we could maybe get down to like 4 or 3.5, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think it's going to stay pretty static here at 4.5 and maybe some spots that are up to 5. But even then, you know, there's a couple of books that have thrown that up there. That's not that tempting number of a number to grab at this point, right? Usually you'll kind of move on the market if you're an odds shop, and you'll try to see if you can get some takers on that number. But 5's kind of dead. So I would assume that the books that have hung up 5 are not really getting a ton of bites at this point right now. So if anything, maybe we get to 5.5 and it gets bought back really quickly just because that's going to be the peak of the market. But I think we're probably just going to be closing in 4.5 would be my guess for this one.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I pulled the trigger on the 4.5 as well. We discussed a lot last week in terms of how we could see this game playing out. If there was one side that we thought that had the potential to win at margin, it would be the Seattle side. So I played some alts as well, which we'll get into a little bit later. We'll also get into some of the fun props because that's what this week is all about. Everybody wants to dive into all of these different markets, and they have expanded on DraftKings, FanDuel, even your local brick and mortars have more options than any other game that you'll have. Some fun novelty prop angles that I spent, I'll admit, JVT, way too freaking much time diving into the Gatorade and the coin toss props. But listen, the people need the information. I'm here to give them what they want. So that's what we did. We'll have a couple great guests on deck with us, too, to break down this game today. In particular, Corbin Smith, who covers the Seattle Seahawks very intimately. He's going to join us a little bit later. We'll also have Kyle Hightower give us the Patriots side of things, who writes for the Associated Press. And it seems like the Patriots are at least in good spirits before they made the trip. And I'd be curious to ask Kyle about the send-off rally that New England did have over the weekend, because take a listen to how Mike Vrabel stepped out onto the stage.
Come out and play!
I got to tell you, JVT, that was not on my bingo card. I didn't think Mike Vrabel had it in him.
No, I mean, I guess I didn't either. I don't get the bit, though, because I think it was Hollins was doing that right before the Broncos game. He brought the bottles out and everything. And, look, I've never seen the movie, but I understand the reference. But I guess this is the rallying cry for the New England Patriots as they move forward. So, look, they deserve to be excited. Vrabel deserves to be excited. He's done a great job with this team, and they have exceeded a lot of expectations so far this season. Schedule aside, they've been awesome. So I would think you'd be fired up the way they've gotten here at this point, especially going through the teams and the defenses they went through.
I was impressed just watching some of the clips from that thing. Vrabel in particular, just dressed in the suit, and you could see his breath because it's so cold out there. But no gloves, no jacket, just wearing the suit before you get out onto the plane. It looked freaking freezing, and I checked the temperature. It was like the single digits, but feels like negatives kind of a thing. And he's just full tough guy football mentality. There we go. Did the Seahawks do anything? I didn't see like send off videos and stuff for them like we did for New England.
I did not see anything. They seem very business-like. You know, I was watching some of the media stuff earlier this morning, and they showed like Mike McDonald getting off the plane, and there was some guy at the bottom of the stairs handing out hats to all of the people, like Super Bowl hats, and he kind of just takes it and almost puts it in his pocket. He's like, all right, thanks, come on. We're moving on here. So whether or not it's actually going to have an effect, well, look, we have, again, another week, 6 days now to overanalyze this. I'm sure some will see this and go, oh, look, New England Patriots, they're playing with house money. Well, the Seattle Seahawks, it's too much pressure. I don't know. But I do not think that the Seahawks are very much the celebratory type right now.
We love reading into every little thing as much as possible. That said, we do have a ton to get to over the course of the next 2 hours here on Money Moves. Let's set the table like we always do for everything in addition to the Super Bowl we'll be discussing today.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
So we mentioned our great guests that are going to give us each team's side perspective in the Super Bowl. We're also going to head behind the counter with our good buddy Chuck Esposito of the Red Rock Race and Sportsbook to discuss not only some of the Super Bowl and prop line movement, but believe it or not, JVT, there are other sports going on right now as well.
Yeah. I mean, come on now. We saw a good game yesterday between the Thunder and the Nuggets. We got a full schedule of the NHL as well. But I'm looking forward to talking with Chuck about what the early action's been like over at stations with some of the locals out there in Vegas having their say on what this is going to look like from a Super Bowl standpoint, a little bit more of a public view maybe. So we'll get an idea of what that's looking like with Chuck.
Yeah, and also we'll have a little hockey talk later on in the program because I do have a couple bets today. But, I mean, how about the Stadium Series this weekend, too? That game absolutely delivered out there in Tampa. But you mentioned the association. That is your baby. And we have the NBA trade deadline officially approaching later on this week. All eyes are going to be on the Greek Freak, but a lot of other moves that have already been made, too, maybe going a little under the radar.
Yeah, you know what's funny, Stormy, is despite the fact that it is not as reminiscent as last year, because last year in New Orleans, the talk of the town was Luka Doncic being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers out at Radio Row, even though it was Super Bowl week. And that is the same thing here, because we're out in San Francisco, and of course the buzz in town is that the Warriors might be landing the Giannis Antetokounmpo. So we'll see. We've seen some market shift toward the Windy City for Giannis Antetokounmpo to land out there, but this is going to be the story over the next couple of days, and it does seem like he will be moved by the time the deadline comes around.
Sure, that's one story. Another story, how about that Hornets win-o-meter, baby? How about it? How about Charlotte? It's been beautiful. So, of course, naturally, we've got to talk about that a little bit later. But let's kick things off here last couple minutes of our opening segment with the coaching carousel officially concluding in the National Football League as all record-tying 10 NFL head coaching vacancies, JVT, have reportedly been filled. The Cardinals officially official, bringing in Rams offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur. And then you called it. You had this on your radar from day one, I feel like, with the Raiders of Clint Kubiak being their guy, and obviously can't sign on the dotted line until after the Super Bowl, as he will be coaching here with the Seattle Seahawks. But I think probably this is the guy you wanted if you were Vegas, and you got him.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to ruin this, and I was talking to some people out here about this, but it does seem like the Raiders are finally kind of buying into a forward-thinking, progressive football type of mentality with some of the decisions that they have made over the last few months. Stormy, they decide to play for the first overall pick. They go for the younger offensive mind. There's growing rumblings that maybe Max Crosby might be on the way out as well. Again, driven more toward asset acquisition and building through the draft. And so if that's the case, I think that this is a positive step for the Raiders. And it seems that maybe some of the voices that were having too much sway in the Raiders front office that weren't necessarily employees, that I think maybe they have been pushed to the side for a little bit more buy-in from the other voices like Tom Brady and John Spytek. So I dig it, man. I think this should be a good hire for them. We'll see if Kubiak can work some of his offensive magic for the Raiders and the pieces that they have. And on the flip side, too, you look at the Cardinals and Mike LaFleur, and you see this theme emerging with some of these hires for the most part. Again, in today's NFL, Stormy, you need an offensive mind. You need to be able to scheme up an offense that is going to score with the way that these rules are playing out. Even though it seems like the year of the defense, given the teams that have been making runs in the NFL, you've got to be able to put together an offense. You've got to be able to get a quarterback. And I think that's kind of the theme of some of these hires that we're seeing.
Well, and unfortunately for the Arizona Cardinals on their side of things, got to figure out what that quarterback position is going to look like, because the Kyler Murray of it all certainly feels like that has come to an end. And with that in mind, I don't know, the LaFleur hire in particular, when that came down, it was just kind of like, he's the last guy available that's been talked about in the coaching cycle. Let's just hire him. It didn't exactly, at least to me, bring something I'm very inspired about, like I feel bad saying that, but the situation with the Arizona Cardinals doesn't really feel like something I'm excited about if I'm a fan moving forward, but we'll have to wait and see what it all shakes out. And we have plenty of offseason time to dive into what all of these head coaches might be able to do and look forward when we have win totals available and more things like that. But because we do have a game coming up, because we do have a full slate of NBA, NHL, college basketball ahead of us later on today, when we come back here on Money Moves, let's start to dive into some of that. Don't go anywhere. We are just getting started here. This is Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back here on Money Moves as we dive into the NBA. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. This segment of Money Moves sponsored by Upside. Turn your gas purchases into real cash back with the free Upside app. You can download Upside now and use the promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. And when I say we dive into the NBA, obviously all the talk this week, and we brought it up in the last segment, is about the trade deadline coming up and what is this going to mean for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Meanwhile, there are already some other moves being made elsewhere, including with the Cleveland Cavaliers, JVT, who traded DeAndre Hunter to the Sacramento Kings for Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis in a 3-team deal that includes the Chicago Bulls. So what did you make of this initial move, and can you kind of walk people through what it means?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I thought it was a great deal for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Look, they're a team that needed some backcourt depth. Obviously, pieces in the backcourt haven't been really there. They've had some depth issues. They've had just great, poor play. Like Lonzo Ball hasn't really worked out. We haven't seen Max Strus. So you needed something. Darius Garland's been hurt. So the best way to do it is to go find it. They flipped DeAndre Hunter for Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder. And I think a lot of people might be attracted to Schroeder, Stormy, because he is the familiar name. We understand who he is throughout his career and how good he can be at times. But the Keon Ellis piece of this, I think, is very, very important. Keon Ellis is a really good on-ball defender that you can have in your backcourt if you're Cleveland. And so now you can throw him out there in certain lineups and trust that he's going to be able to, at the very least, match up with some of these really premier backcourt pieces that you are going to go up against as a defense. And so now to have him, to have Jarrett Allen, to have Evan Mobley when everybody's healthy, those are some pretty good defensive pieces at all three levels, we'll call it, that Cleveland can employ in an Eastern Conference that is looking more and more winnable by the minute outside of the Knicks. All of a sudden, starting to wake up here, and I think they've won now 6 straight. But I really like this for Cleveland. It's hard to ignore it. For Sacramento, whatever. They're a team that's going to be in the lottery. They have the worst record in the NBA. They're sitting there at the top of Tankathon in terms of the top projected pick. So this means really nothing for them. It's more about Cleveland, and I think this is one of those sneaky under-the-radar moves. I don't think it's to this level, but I'll remind everybody, 2 years ago now, there was a flip where you got like a the Dallas Mavericks at the trade deadline, adding pieces like P.J. Washington and others that didn't really look like anything to begin with, but then all of a sudden it led them to the NBA Finals. The Nuggets have done this as well. So this is one that doesn't move the market, but I think this should lead to a Cleveland team that has already started to be more respected, be a little bit more feared now in the Eastern Conference.
And are they done? As I guess a follow-up question to that based on some rumors and some predictive trade markets?
Well, we'll see. I mean, look, I always say that if they want to make it work, they'll make it work. You're referring to, of course, the Cavaliers were a team that could, in theory, go get Giannis Antetokounmpo, but that might not be them. The Chicago Bulls have moved up the odds board for Giannis Antetokounmpo to potentially go and land him. The Warriors are still the choice, to me, that would probably land him by the time we get to the trade deadline. That's all the talk out here in San Francisco, obviously, out on the ground. But I would say that Cleveland, not that they don't need him, Stormy, but if he doesn't fall inside of the Eastern Conference, you're still really well primed to do a lot of damage here if you're Cleveland. I mean, you look at the recent stretch since December 29th, they're 13-5 straight up, 10-8 against the spread. They've covered by about 2.2 points per game. Their net rating is 6th best in the NBA over that time. They're top 7 in both offensive and defensive rating. And much of their slow start, and I used December 29th, by the way, is because they were only one game above 500. I believe they were 17-16 at that point. This team has been to the slow start because of injuries. So now, if you start to get healthy, you start to add really good pieces, now all of a sudden you're looking at a Cavaliers team that I think will be very formidable, and much like the team that many expected last year as well. So I think they're lurking a little bit here.
And in the Eastern Conference, they are 4th on the board right now, 5-1. Yep. Meanwhile, the New York Knicks remain your favorite at plus 320. And you did mention them, the win streak that they are on. It is 6 straight right now after topping the Lakers 112-100 last night. Win and cover that 6.5-point spread. Is this a stretch you think that the Knicks could potentially build on? Although they're not the only 6-game win streak in the Eastern Conference right now, are they, JVT?
No. No, they are not. And I would say everybody should watch out for the Charlotte Hornets. But we will get to that. We'll have to cross that bridge when it comes. Right now, let's just get to 26 victories. I think New York, they've been very clear with some of their outward messaging that they're happy with their team. James Dolan went on New York radio about 2 weeks ago and said as much. I think the term he used, I'm paraphrasing, was they've been in trouble chasing the shiny object, which, of course, at this point would be Giannis Antetokounmpo. Brian Windhorst earlier today, I was watching this morning, talking about how the Knicks are happy with their rosters, the way that they put it. So I don't think they're making any moves. I think that swoon that they were in post-NBA Cup had a little bit to do with some internal strife than anything else. And I think maybe if they just kind of get their heads out of the rear ends and buy in as a collective, they're going to be fine in the Eastern Conference, and they should be one of the better teams there outside of Detroit, Cleveland. And I was going to say Philly, but we should mention that we saw over the weekend that Paul George got suspended for 25 games by the NBA. Philly takes a little bit of a hit, but if you were going to lose a piece, I think Paul George might have been the piece. Obviously, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Joel Embiid. I think those are the pieces that you really want to rely on. And George, if he gets his stuff together, is the ancillary cherry on top. So I don't think you're hurting too much. But after months of just seeing what this Eastern Conference looks like, I would argue that the two teams that are worth investing in are the teams that are right now outside of the top 4, which are Cleveland and Philadelphia, the way they're playing.
Well, okay, so real quickly, what do you make of that with the Paul George situation? And the 76ers and Clippers are going head-to-head today with L.A. laying 2 where things sit right now at home.
Very sad, because I was hoping the Clippers would get revenge on Paul George, even though Paul George, I mean, they didn't really want him. No, look, it's 25 games.
Being the first game, though.
I know, right? Look, he's going to be gone for 25 games. You still got time before the regular season ends, so whatever, he'll be back. I mean, it's clearly been a disappointing stay here for him with the Philadelphia 76ers. And the Clippers, of course, they get right back on the horse after losing a game. They are right back there with being one of the hotter teams in the NBA. So I think big picture, it's a pretty good litmus test for both teams. You know, the Clippers, we were waiting to see them get tested, and they ran into a little bit of a brick wall the other night. Now here you get another bit of a step up in competition to see if they're going to get it done. But we'll lean a little bit here toward Los Angeles in this spot against Philadelphia. There's a couple of other games on the card, but to me, this is going to be about whether or not you're going to get the guys on the roster out there tonight. It's the third game in 4 nights, second leg of a back-to-back for the Clippers. We've talked about this. Those are generally some poor spots, and we've seen those play out in favor of the team that has the rest advantage throughout the season.
JVT, Stormy, Buonantony here on Money Moves, breaking down the NBA today. And I know we talk about the Hornets a lot because we are sweating out that preseason future. It's the two of us, Kelly Bidlin. We've got the win-o-meter. It's been so fun.
Tim Murray.
Tim, too?
Yes, I didn't realize that we had infected Tim, and I forgot. He had me on last weekend, and he brought it up, and he's like, yeah, I asked you about the win total in the preseason, and he's on it as well. So, man, there's a lot of us here on the network that they're really watching with bated breath this Hornets win-o-meter to see if we can get this thing filled up.
Hell yeah, let's go. I'm about it. Although I will tell you, when they upset the Spurs over the weekend, I did not expect to see the 6-game win streak was the longest they'd had in a decade. So that caught me at least a little bit off guard. That said, they're pretty big favorite today against the New Orleans Pelicans. It has come down a bit from 7.5 to 6.5. A big move on this total as well, from 235.5 to now 230.5. But what are your thoughts on this run that the Hornets have been on? Can they keep it up once again in this type of a role at home?
I mean, my thought would be that the market's getting a little high on them, right? I mean, we talk about this all the time, and buying low and selling high, and where are you at and where are you getting priced, and it does seem like we're getting up there for Charlotte. You mentioned where the line is now, opening 6.5, still kind of sitting there, some spots popping 7. I'd lean a little bit toward New Orleans, but, I told that to Tim over the weekend, where it was just a short 3.5-point spread in favor of San Antonio, and they ended up losing that game outright. Look, statistically, this starting lineup of LaMelo Ball and Con Knipple and Miles Bridges and Moussa Diabate and Brandon Miller, this is the best lineup in the NBA. There's no question about that. And if you were just to price that lineup as a team, then yeah, you're talking about an elite group. But at some point, you would think that maybe this is going to expire as you meet, of course, the power rating improving. So would lean a little bit here toward New Orleans. There's certain things they can do. They can get to the rim, and Charlotte does struggle to defend the rim, Stormy. Charlotte does turn the ball over, and so maybe you can get those extra possessions going the other way. If you're New Orleans, you're going to reach a point where you're a little too far out, and this might be it. But again, I thought that was it against San Antonio, and they proved over the weekend that they can get it done. So let's hope that they win today, maybe don't cover, and we can get that done with Hornets again. Just fill this thing up. That's all we need.
And we should get to see like a good chunk of this game too, with it tipping off at the top of the next hour. Yep. So it's funny too, because I was texting you the other day about how it was nice. Recently we had a little bit of midday NBA. We were talking about how we would like to see more of that. And I go, yeah, it would be great if we could get some more noon Pacific time tips. And then the first Monday we come back, not only do we get a noon Pacific time tip, but it is our Charlotte Hornets. And I am so gassed up for it. Speaking of gassing up, are you still paying full price for gas? Well, you don't have to. And with the free Upside app, you can earn real cash back every time you fill up right now. All you need to do is download Upside from the App Store or Google Play. Start earning today. Use the promo code SPORTS. You'll get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. Drivers are saving $200 to $300 a year just buying the gas they already needed. It's simple. It's legit. You can cash out anytime to your bank account or e-gift cards like Amazon. Download the free Upside app now. Use the promo code SPORTS for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. Offers vary by user and location, but go to upside.com for all of the terms and conditions information that you need there. We got to step aside here real quickly on Money Moves, but when we come back, continuing to dive into Super Bowl 60. We are just 6 days out, and we're going to cover this game from all angles, not only the side, total, alternate numbers, props, but deep diving on each team's perspective. We will hit the Patriots side next, as Kyle Hightower, who covers the team for the AP, will join us coming up. Stay with us right here on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Had their big send-off over the weekend, the rally at Gillette Stadium, as they get set to embark on yet another Super Bowl appearance. 4.5-point underdog taking on the Seattle Seahawks in less than a week now, as we welcome you back to Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Stormy Buonantony. Very excited to have Kyle Hightower join us now on the Progressive Guest Line. Covers the Patriots closely for the Associated Press. And it's funny, this Patriots team didn't go very long without having another franchise quarterback and being back in the Super Bowl. So I'm sure the fans out there in Foxborough in that area are just like, oh, this is old hat. We're just back, right, Kyle?
Oh, absolutely. And, the patience here in the Boston area is very thin when it comes to, layoffs from championship runs, potential championship runs. So definitely a welcome sight for the fans here, in Foxborough in the Boston area. It's got that kind of throwback kind of feeling to another young quarterback who led his team to to a Super Bowl early in his career. So a lot of excitement for sure.
So, Kyle, let's talk about that guy Drake May for a second, because we have 2 weeks between the game and the conference championships. We beat to death everything, and it did seem like Drake May's shoulder was hanging off by a thread. So what's going on with the shoulder? How's he feeling? What's the latest update with his health?
Well, the latest big update was, the footage of him getting off the team plane, carrying his carry-on with his right throwing shoulder. So the internet's loose, and and even the hacks like me are watching every moment like that with great attention. No, I mean, I think that it's obviously it's a thing, as May admitted himself or acknowledged himself, saying that it's I get it, it's a starting quarterback for an NFL team, and it's his throwing shoulder, it's a thing, but everybody's downplaying it. I think there is absolutely 0% chance that Drake May does not play in this game. They're taking the break, like every team would do. He didn't practice one day last week, but there's 2 weeks between the game. He's got plenty of time to rest and to recruit that shoulder. They're not going to take any chances. Now, if he comes out on the field, over the first practice of actual Super Bowl week and he doesn't participate, we got a different kind of story. But right now, I think it's much ado about nothing. Obviously, it's a thing because, like everybody knows, I mean, this is a starting quarterback for, a team in Super Bowl week. It's going to get attention. It's going to get every eyeball, all kinds of scrutiny. But I think it's much ado about nothing at this point, but we'll see what happens.
Well, even that practice that he missed, wasn't it due to an illness as well? So, although he looked fine on the stage when they were hyping up the crowd before the travel. That said, for the offense in general, we know that they have played really tough defenses to this point in the postseason. They get another really challenging one in the Seattle Seahawks, who are number 1 in points per game allowed this year. But when you look at what they have done against those defenses, it hasn't been the offense that we saw in the regular season. And I know a lot of people have made a lot of the Patriots' schedule as well. For that matchup with the Patriots offense and the Seattle defense, how do you see it shaking out? What would the game plan be for them to have success?
I think you're dead on, Stormy. I think the game plan starts with the rushing game. If this Patriots team cannot run the football, they're going to have a tough time against that that very vaunted Seattle defense. Ramondre Stevenson just came back off an injury, off injured reserve actually, rather, for a period of time. He's back in the mix. He's scoring touchdowns again. But the young rookie, Travion Henderson, has been, he's turned heads this season. 3 runs over 50 yards for touchdowns. Great explosive threat there anytime. It adds a different dimension for this run game. And when they've been able to establish the run, when they've gotten into trouble this season, it's taken the heat off of Drake May, and it's kind of bailed him out of some sticky situations. That must happen again in the Super Bowl early, establishing the run for them to open up the field for Drake May, or else they're going to tee off on rookie left tackle Will Campbell's going to come after him. They're going to put a lot of pressure on Drake May's backside. If he hits the turf earlier, he's under pressure, and they're not running the football. It's going to be a tough day for the Patriots for sure.
Who among the skill position guys and pass catcher do you think would emerge in a game like this for New England?
Well, it's funny. I think there's going to be a lot of attention, obviously, on Stephon Diggs. Another 1,000-yard receiving season after coming off the knee injury, last season. He's had a great season. Not a huge big play threat. They're kind of stretched to feel more of a slot guy and, a guy that they could go to in the red zone. But Kayshon Boutte on the outside has, he's got some amazing one-handed catches. He's shown an ability to be able to get, to run that X play, get up the field, make big catches, and really put the Patriots in kind of advantageous positions to score points. And DeMario Douglas, not as maybe as the big numbers that Kayshon Boutte has had this year, but he's another guy who can, just really change a game in an instant, super fast, kind of understated a little bit this year because of the exploits of, a Boutte, of Diggs, of a Hunter Henry at tight end. But he's another guy who can make things happen. And I go back again to, Travion Henderson, he wasn't expected to do much with Ramondre Stevenson out. And, right off the bat, he was out breaking long runs and putting points on the board. So I think between that quartet of players I believe I just named, you're going to have somebody going to emerge and make a big play in this game if the Patriots are going to win that 7th Lombardi Trophy.
Kyle Hightower covers the Patriots for the AP, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Is the Patriots defense as good as the postseason metrics would lead people to believe?
I think they are. I think they're hitting their stride at the right time. Milton Williams, obviously coming off a Super Bowl victory last year, playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been in this situation before. Obviously, very the most recent as you can get, having been there last season. He's hit a stride. Lately he's finding his groove. A lot will depend on Robert Spillane is dealing with a linebacker is dealing with an ankle injury. He's been a big part of his success, a free agent who's added a lot of dimension to this first Vrabel defense. And there's other guys too in the secondary. I cannot forget Christian Gonzalez. A guy who's been the shutdown corner for these Patriots. He battled a hamstring injury early in training camp, missed some games early in the season, and you're wondering if he's going to be able to be the impact player who's going to be. He's been that and more for this team, second team AP All-Pro. He's hit neither him nor Carlton Davis III on the other side, other cornerback, have allowed a touchdown reception this postseason in very few yards. The completion percentages the receivers are getting against him are very low. So those are the names to watch. Talk about Gonzalez in the secondary, Carlton Davis in the secondary, Robert Spillane if he's healthy at linebacker, and Milt Williams. I think if Milt Williams gets up some pass rush going there on Sam Darnold, then it's going to be a more advantageous day for the Patriots on defense.
With this defense, Kyle, they have been blitzing a lot more here in the postseason as well. Do you expect that trend to continue in the Super Bowl, and why have they been blitzing so much?
I think it will, and I think it's a lot of credit goes to kind of the de facto defensive coordinator in Zach Kerr. He stepped in obviously in the preseason when Terrell Williams, the defensive coordinator, was diagnosed with cancer. He's been dealing with his treatments and stuff. He's kind of been given the season off to kind of focus on his health. But a mentee of Terrell Williams was Zach Kerr. And he's brought a different kind of dimension to the defense. Not exactly the kind of defense that Terrell Williams would have kind of instituted in the schemes he would have instituted had he been healthy and been coaching. But he's brought a more blitz-happy package, at times, for this defense. And he's adding his own wrinkles. He's experimenting. And he's doing what young coaches do, which is kind of finding their own footing, kind of finding their own way. And I think that's kind of the impetus of where that's coming from, those blitz packages you're talking about. And I think we don't know exactly what they're going to do with this against the Seahawks team. I think they want to put pressure on the quarterback for sure and put him under pressure and see if we could get him to make some mistakes. But I think this Patriots team has been, very much their MO has been very much to bring new things to the table when the people aren't expecting it. So I think maybe a few new wrinkles we haven't seen from Zach Kerr and his defense are to be expected.
Kyle, we've only got about 30 seconds left with you, but do you have a gut feeling for how this thing's going to go come Sunday?
My gut says it's going to be it's going to be a defensive. Both defenses are going to have good days. I think on Super Bowl Sunday. I think it's not going to be as bad as the Patriots' last appearance in Super Bowl in 2018 during the 2018 season when they beat that LA Rams team 13-3 in that very slogging kind of game that wasn't very fun to watch. I think there'll be a few more points scored in this game, but I think it's going to be very tight. I'm thinking, a 17-14 victory for whoever wins. And at this point, I'm on the spot, going to take the Patriots in a close one.
Okay.
It was a good young kicker making a field goal to help him win it.
Beautiful. Kyle, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it, and safe travels out there to San Francisco.
I appreciate it, guys. Enjoy the game.
Thanks, Kyle. Again, make sure you check out all the work over there at the AP. Appreciate Kyle giving us his time. And as a reminder, as we all get set for the big game coming up on Sunday, we will have you covered from start to finish all day long right here on VSiN, beginning with the VSiN Pro Football Tailgate Show Big Game Edition. We'll also have a special edition of a numbers game, prop points. JVT and I will be on set right before kickoff, ultimately. Full day of action covering you from tip to tail come Super Bowl Sunday. We'll be right back looking at the Seattle Seahawks side of this thing next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on Money Moves VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, getting you set for all things Super Bowl 60 as we are just 6 days out. Last segment, we had a deep dive on the Patriots side of things. Now, let's hear from the Seattle Seahawks side. Very excited to have Corbin Smith join us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Seahawks beat reporter, covers all things Seattle on Emerald City Spectrum, also host of the Locked On Seahawks pod. You can follow him on X at Corbin Smith NFL. And I guess we started last segment talking quarterbacks, so we might as well jump in from there as well. What a story it has been to see what Sam Darnold has done the last 2 years, and now the career arc redemption, getting to a Super Bowl. And the oblique didn't seem to bother him in the NFC title game. What should we know about Sam Darnold and this run that he has been on?
Yeah, I don't think the oblique was an issue at all for that last game. That was one of the best playoff performances I've seen by a quarterback. In fact, he was one of 11 players ever in a playoff game to have 3 touchdown passes, over 330 passing yards, 67% completion rate, and no turnovers. So not something that you see very often, but, man, he is – I just – I really admire the way that when he came into Seattle that this guy's had every chance to trash the teams he played for early in his career, and he refuses to do that. And I think that tells you why he's been successful here in Seattle, is just the way that he carries himself. He's unflappable. The guy doesn't let what happened to him in the past affect him, and that even-keeled mindset that he's got. If he throws an interception, he's going to shake it off. He's not going to worry about it, and he can come back and still win you games. He can take over games the way that he did in that NFC Championship game. And so it's been incredibly fun to watch him take that next step here, at least in Seattle. I don't know that Minnesota's been too happy about that, though.
So what do we think the game plan is here, Corbin, for his offensive coordinator's swan song as their OC? Clint Kubiak's done a brilliant job. What do you think his strategy is going to be come Sunday?
Yeah, I look at this game. This is going to be one that really boils down to offensively for Seattle. Can they keep their run game rolling? This has been an offense that second half of the season, the run game has really come to life. They were bottled up fairly decent by the Rams, but the passing game was dialed up so well it didn't matter. But they've got to be able to run the football effective enough. And this is a Patriots defense. To look at the way that they've gone through the playoffs, including the Texans rushing just for 48 yards in the divisional round. If Seattle wants to be able to get things going for Sam Darnold, have those opportunities to take their shot plays, the run game is going to have to be effective. That doesn't mean they need to run for 200 yards, but they have got to be effective moving the ball on the ground against a defense that's been really hard to run the football on in the postseason. I'm expecting that to be a big part of the early stages of the game plan to try to open things up for that play action, which, oh, by the way, New England has the number 1 play action defense in the NFL. So this feels like one of those situations where something's got to give when you look at what the Seahawks have been so successful doing and what New England's been so successful doing. And I think running the football well early is going to be crucial to the Seahawks opening up the rest of their playbook in this matchup.
Yeah, Corbin, and because the Patriots have been so good against the run, that's why we've seen Kenneth Walker's rushing yards prop come down the way that it has, from 78.5 yards to now 72.5 yards. And with that, obviously, the Zach Charbonnet injury plays into it, that he's not available. Should we expect anything from a George Halani or elsewhere in the ground game, or is Kenneth Walker kind of your only hope when it comes to that right now?
No, I think from a betting standpoint, I wouldn't be betting on anything with George Halani just because he's only played in one game since late November, and that was the NFC Championship game. With that being said, he made some big plays in that game against the Rams, particularly as a pass catcher, and that may be where the value lies here if you're looking for a non-Ken Walker III impact out of the backfield. I expect that K9 is going to be the bell cow in the run game. But George Halani is a player who had 88 catches in his college career at Boise State, and he's got really soft hands out of the backfield. He can make guys miss, and he's a solid pass protector as well. So I don't know that you're going to see a ton from him in the run game necessarily, but this is a Patriots team that has had a few games this year where running backs have given them some issues in the passing game. I can see George Holani making a catch or two that's big in this game on Sunday.
What about Rashid Shaheed, Corbin? Because I feel like every time they draw something up for him, it is with the objective to get an explosive play. And in a game like the Super Bowl where you're kind of throwing the kitchen sink at this thing, feels like we could get some big Shaheed plays even outside of special teams. What do you make of what their game plan is in terms of using him?
Yeah, he's been, it's interesting when you look at him from a receiver standpoint. He's only had one game above 70 receiving yards as they traded for him. Obviously, the trade has been a massive coup for them, though, when you look at what he's done on kick and punt returns. But he had a 51-yard catch on the opening drive in that NFC Championship game, and that set up a touchdown right out of the gate. The Seahawks were rolling from that point on. This is a game where I'm wondering how much attention JSN draws. If we could see, especially if Christian Gonzalez is the one that's working against Jackson Smith and Jigba, does Seattle look to capitalize on the second and third quarters and see if they can get the speedy receiver going downfield? Again, I think getting the run game going early is going to create those shot play opportunities. It's critical to do that. But I could see Shaheed being involved in the run game, too. They've used him quite a bit on jet sweeps and end arounds. Could see him get a few touches in the ground game as well. I'm anticipating that there's going to be a big play at some point. You just never know where it's going to come from with him because of how many different ways that he can create electricity on a football field.
Talking Seahawks with Emerald City Spectrum's Corbin Smith here on the Progressive Guest Line. When it comes to this Seattle Seahawks defense, we know how great and dominant they've been throughout the course of the year. On the other side for New England, Drake May, he's had a bit of a fumble problem. The offensive line hasn't held up great. Do you feel like Seattle can get to and cause problems for Drake May in this game?
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at the regular season versus the playoffs for this Patriots offensive line, because I compared it in an article I wrote today to what Russell Wilson used to do in Seattle, where there would be high volume sack numbers, but if you watch the games, you realize a lot of those were on the quarterback for holding on to the football. Drake May's very similar, 3.1 seconds per drop back in the regular season. Pro Football charged him for 20 of the 47 sacks that he took in the regular season. In the playoffs, he has taken 15 sacks. Only 5 of them have been credited to him. And the two big issues have been the rookies on the offensive line. Will Campbell and Jared Wilson have given up 5 sacks combined in these 3 playoff games. I feel like that's where the advantage could lie for the Seahawks going into this contest. Maybe the biggest advantage they've got with Leonard Williams, DeMarcus Lawrence, all the experience they've got on that defensive line. You've got 2 rookies that have clearly struggled to protect Drake May. He has struggled to protect the football in those situations. That could be where Seattle's biggest advantage is, getting after those rookies and being able to create some quick pressure and take away some of those extended plays that Drake May has burned opponents with throughout the course of this season.
Corbin, one of the biggest edges the Seahawks have had in a couple of these games last week, it was their special teams. How do you think this comes into play this weekend against New England?
Yeah, this has been, I think, maybe the biggest difference maker for Seattle, going from a 10-win team to being a Super Bowl team this year. Their special teams week in and week out has been fantastic. Jay Harbaugh has done a phenomenal job in his second season as a special teams coordinator. And what you have to watch with this team, they've got 5 special teams touchdowns, but it hasn't just been Rashid Shaheed. They had a crazy play from George Holani in week 2 where he recovered a kickoff that wasn't caught by the Pittsburgh Steelers. They also had a punt return by Torrey Horton, who's not going to be available in this game. But they've been able to put a lot of points on the board. They have forced fumbles on kickoffs. That's where you got to watch this team. It seems like every single week they find a different way to come up with a turnover or create a huge impact play in that phase of the game. And in the Super Bowl, that gets magnified even further. So I do expect to see Seattle, because they've been doing it all season, to come up with some kind of a big play in that third phase of the game that gives them a shot to hoist the Lombardi for a second time.
Corbin, awesome stuff. We appreciate your breakdown. Safe travels, and I hope that you are packed with multiple brightly colored items for each day of the trip.
I've got everything ready to go. Thank you so much.
There we go. Corbin Smith, everybody. Check out all of the work over there at Emerald City Spectrum. Appreciate that. And by the way, as we head into the big game 60, this is your last chance to lock in the lowest price we've ever offered on a VSiN Pro annual subscription. You save $60 off with the big game 60 deal on a regular annual price when you use our code MONEY at vsin.com/subscribe. Again, vsin.com/subscribe.